Hello and welcome back to the Fallon Moran podcast. I'm really excited to have Gloria on today. And today, Gloria is going to be talking about planning and content and all of the things because, well, this is a huge topic. It's very controversial, I feel like, lately. And there are so many things that could be said to it. And we were talking about it just before. But first off, I want Gloria to take it away. Gloria, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, how you got into entrepreneurship, and specifically planning.
So my name is Gloria Starr. I am an ADHD productivity coach. I help multi-passionate entrepreneurs transform from feeling chronically chaotic to magically successful. So basically that means I help take all of the things inside your head and I help you get on a specific plan toward making action towards your goals. So I got into entrepreneurship about a year and a half ago for real, when the pandemic hit and I decided I really wanted to be a coach, a financial coach of all things. And because I really like Dave Ramsey and I saw he was doing some financial coach master training and I was like, I could talk to people about money. Cool. I could do that. And so I signed up for that and I signed up for a network marketing company. And at the same time, I found out that I had ADHD at 35 and it's all just been kind of a whirlwind from there. So I ended up not pursuing financial coaching like I thought I would, but for ADHD coaching, because that just made sense for me because me, my husband, my son, all of us have ADHD, and I have many other family members who have ADHD. And I've been a special educator for the past 12 years and in education, in special education for 17. So it kind of all came together and made a full circle. In regards to the planning, so teachers have to be planned out. Like you have to know what's going on. You have to have some sort of plan as you're going through your day. And what was happening with me was with entrepreneurship, there was all of this personal development that you go through, like just becoming an entrepreneur, right? Like you start learning so much about yourself. And suddenly I was like, ooh, I need a morning journal. Ooh, I need an evening journal. Oh, I need this, I need that. And it was like 50 million journals. And I was like, I can't do all this stuff in multiple places. I can't plan my week, have a morning journal, have an evening journal. There's just too many moving parts. And like I would buy a journal, then I would lose the journal, and sometimes it would be in the bathroom or next to my bed, or then it would end up in the car because I hadn't done it yet. So on my way to work, I wanted to make sure I did it, which I never did. And I was like, I just need all this stuff in one place, right? Mm-hmm. So I ended up making something with the help of a lot of people, you being one of them, making the Disorganized planning pad to put all of those things, including your financials and tracking your food and planning your week and asking all the wonderful things that you need to ask yourself as a business owner every day. I put it all in one two-sided pad. So that's kind of how I got into planning, and I really enjoy it. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Yeah, it is full circle, especially since you, just like you said, you like wanted to go and start with financial coaching. And I remember meeting you on that coffee chat and you were like, oh yeah, I want to like go into this financial direction. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, ADHD. And then it was like, oh wait, I want to create this planner pad. And then it incorporated still the very thing that you wanted to start from at the beginning of all of this. But there was another thing that you said that I really appreciate was that you were like, for real, because when we want to go into this, a lot of the time we don't realize how much it like actually has to take out of us in order to start the journey, or in order to invest in ourselves, or in order to meet other people who want to do it. Like we just have this idea and we're like, oh, I want to do it, and like maybe it's like create videos on YouTube, and then you don't actually publish the videos on YouTube, or like you buy a blog but then you like don't tell anybody about the blog, right? Like when you decide to commit to something for real is when it actually starts to really happen. So I wanted to touch on that because I thought that was so true when you said it before. So, all right. So we got a little bit about you. We got a little bit about like how your journey started and how you got to where you're at right now. I really want to know, because we were touching on this before, and especially because this has to do with planning. How, like, what is the best way, especially for somebody who has ADHD, what is the best way for you to go about planning your week, planning your content, planning things in your business, planning out your marketing for your launches, your offers, your programs? I know this is a lot, but a lot of people have a lot of things to say about this. So I want to hear your take on it.
So as of right now, planning for me looks like planning out the week, like having a weekly view of the plan. I have a paper planner and I have Google Calendar. If Google Calendar went down tomorrow, I would be screwed. Like everything that's scheduled is in my Google Calendar. So right now I take everything that's in the Google Calendar and I write it out for the week. And that's really to like help, just like you were saying, and this is gonna come full circle, just to like embed it in my head. I have to write it out. Right?
Oh my
So
God, yes. Thank you for saying that.
I have to write it out in order to help remember it. And like it also gets me thinking about all the different things that I haven't done yet that I still need to do. So I take everything, I write it down, then I go and I look at my goals and say, okay, where do my goals fit into this week? When can I go to the gym and work out or take a walk? When can I meet with my coaching clients? When can I do my program? When is a good time for me to spend time, actual one-on-one time with the kids, right? So really taking all the things that I really want and value and putting it into the plan. And I think that's really important in general. So because we always forget, if we just relied on Google Calendar, unless you're specifically putting those things in your Google Calendar, which it would look crazy when you do, then you're likely not going to remember to do it unless you've like built in that habit, right? So like I don't need to write down that I'm brushing my teeth because it's a habit, but like habits that I want to do or things that I do actually need to take time to remember are the things that I'm writing down. So right now for business, like I used to have to write down that I need to like go on my stories, but I'm so used to doing it at least anywhere between 1 and 5 times a day. I'm so used to at least showing up on my stories that I don't have to write that down. Do I need to write down that I need to post something? Absolutely, because I'll completely forget to do that. And that's a daily habit, not a daily necessarily, but that's a habit that I need to kind of get into. So therefore, I'm not really a batch person, but I know we'll get into that in a little bit, but like making sure that I'm putting the business things, just like due dates for my bills in my calendar, and making sure that the important things that are important to me are in the calendar. That's kind of how I go through that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people call it like putting in their boulders. So then that way, like this is something that has to happen. And it's just like you said, and I think we might have had a conversation, not on this podcast, but outside of it, how like if you want for something to happen, you need to like actually make the time for it to happen, because you're not used to, I mean, this is literally a crash course in habits, right? Like you're not used to making that happen in your time, in your schedule. So if you want for something to start happening in your schedule, you do need to start incorporating it into your plan, into your day, so that you can start to see that that's something that you're going to start doing. So I love that you brought that up. And there was another thing that you said, like way back when you started talking, that really kind of was very poignant to me. And now I forget, obviously, because I was so fixated on like talking to the point of creating the habit, because it's true, like that's how we create habits. The more that you repeat it, the less it is something that you have to think about, because you are incorporating the time into your calendar, you're making it happen. Now, I know that you had just talked about batching, and actually now I really want to kind of talk about it because you did bring it up. A lot of people are like, the best way for you to create content is to batch your content, because then if you batch it, let's just say you're creating videos on a Sunday. If you're taking an hour or two to just create videos for the week on Sunday, then you can just post it all on Monday with all the hashtags, with all of the SEO, like with all the titles, like all of these things already done. And for a lot of people that does work, but I know that there's a huge community of people out there who are like, I can't do that. It doesn't work for me. Like they feel really intuitively guided to speak in the moment and to capture something in the moment. So I kind of want to get your take on this, especially because it is a huge portion of planning, and it's also a huge portion of business, especially in marketing, because if you were to look at a business's marketing plan for the year, right? Like they have an idea over the course of 12 months of what they want to be launching or what products are going off when, right? So they already know, like, this is what we're planning on. But then like there's this whole concept of, I can't plan it in advance because I don't know what the universe is going to throw my way. So I want to get your ideas on content batching, and I want to get your ideas on that idea of consistency, because I feel like it's starting to put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, because a lot of people keep saying, oh, well, the best thing to do is to be consistent, And while consistency is definitely a good thing, so that people are used to you showing up and they are used to hearing you, I feel like at the same time, it's starting to become this like evil word. So I want to get your take on that, because those things are so especially relevant to planning and to marketing.
So I am one of those people and I hate the word consistency because I have a really hard time doing it. But I only have a hard time doing it in regards to things that I don't know how to do, or in regards to things that I have a really hard time doing, right? So like, I am really consistent. I'm going to go back to brushing my teeth. I am really consistent with brushing my teeth. I am really consistent with taking a shower. I am really consistent with feeding my children, right? Like, I have no problem with consistency. I have a problem with consistency on things that make me uncomfortable. And I have a problem with consistency on things that I have difficulty doing. So, and posting is a new skill, right? It's something that I have to learn that I don't know, right? Like I'm not amazing at headlines or at like hook lines, right? I don't know my hashtags off the back of my hand. So I've done a few different things that have been working. So I'm one of those intuitive posters, and I have a notes app on my phone. So I keep all the hashtags on my phone. I keep all my links on my phone so I don't have to keep looking it up every single time I want something. Recently, when I did the 5-day challenge before my group program, I wrote down my post and then I copied and pasted it into my notes app in order to just change a few words because I was like, or else I wouldn't have been consistent with it, because I needed to make it easy for myself, and that made it easy for myself, right? So finding something that works for you is really gonna be what helps you. I think if you're not consistent, then people probably aren't going to see you very much, and they're not really going to know who you are. So like, because of the algorithms and because of all of that. So if you're not in your stories all the time and you're not posting at least a few times a week, if not more, right? Like, then you're pretty much guaranteeing that people aren't going to see you. So so I'm kind of coming around to the idea, we were talking about batching. So I'm kind of coming around to the idea of batching, but one thing that I just spoke with Kara Harvey from the Purpose Driven Mom about was batching in increments, because she was like, break everything down into 15-minute increments and do that for batching. Like if you're doing a podcast and you need to do all these things for the podcast, break them down into 15-minute increments, or break all the things that you need to do per podcast episode. That sounds awful to me. And I said that right off the bat. And I was like, oh my God, like that would be terrible. And I was like, the moment you say I need to break it down into that small thing, it seems so overwhelming. And she was like, yeah, it is or no, she basically, we said, especially with the ADHD, let's just try it for the first episode and like not even look at anything else, right? So when you're batching, you have to build that muscle, right? You have to build the muscle to batch, because batching is actually really good for our brains, because our brains are, if you batch, you're not going through 50 million transitions in the day. You're solely focusing on your content. So batching is actually really great for you. So the word batching is really overwhelming, because when you think batching, you're thinking of like all 30 days, right? Like I'm going to batch for 2 weeks, and you know, that's like 10 posts, and you take like 30 minutes just on one post already. So like doing a whole week's worth is really overwhelming. So what's going to be less overwhelming? Well, how about just do tomorrow? How about just do today and tomorrow and see how that feels, and do a time audit on how long that actually took you. So then you can like slowly build that muscle to batch. And right now I'm preaching to myself because I hate batching, but for this reason, right? But is it really the batching that we hate? Is it really the consistency that we hate? Or is it the idea of the overwhelm?
I can see that. I can see that it could be a little bit of both. I think you bring up a really good point with the word, right? Like just the word batching puts a bad taste in people's mouth. And words are so incredibly powerful. I want to do an actual episode on this later on in the podcast season. But when people hear the word batching, they're already associating it with you need to do this, right? Like you are missing out on this, which is a lack and a scarcity vibration. And so people get overwhelmed by this word batching, just like you were saying. And I like really kind of took a step back as you were saying that before. And I was like, what if we called it something different? Because you're right. It is actually really good for our brains because it's like we're on a roll. Like we have an idea and then it's like, oh, well, this plays into it too. And it's another piece of content. And then it's like, oh, well, this plays into that. And that's again, another, now you're at 3 pieces of content in like probably what, 10 or 15 minutes, right? So it is really neurologically good for us because it gets our brain thinking. But instead of saying the word batching, because this is a psychological association that we already know that we don't like, what if we called it content collecting? It makes it a little bit more curious. It makes it a little bit more open to what you're going to receive when you're starting into that particular hour of creation, right? Like you're collecting ideas to then release as content. It's a little bit more open, a little bit more curious, but like just that one thing alone that you brought up, saying that the word itself is what turns people off, like if you just change the word, I'm sure a lot of people would have way less overwhelm and way less of an adverse, like reaction to it.
Yeah. And I love the word content collecting because that doesn't, like, as a mom of 2 with 3 dogs and a husband, right? Like, and a full-time job, I don't have an hour to dedicate to that. I don't have an hour to dedicate to batching. But if you say, or maybe I do and I'm lying to myself, I'm not sure. but when you say content collecting, that actually makes me think of like, oh, that's something I can do through the day.
Right.
That's not something I have to do in one sitting, right? Like I could content collect today. I could collect a bunch of my pictures, a bunch of sounds if I'm doing reels, and a bunch of hashtags. Like I could do that. I could collect ideas of my stuff that I want to post. Fallon, I might actually do that.
Yeah, see, it's a lot more exciting because instead of like it literally changes your mindset on it, right? And like that's when it boils down to it, a lot of everything, whether it's content, whether it's marketing, whether it's business, whether it's personal growth, whether it's parenting your kids, whether like anything, a lot of anything boils down to your head. And like if you go into creating content because you have to create content for your business, or you have to be consistent for you to sell online, or like you need to publish things in order for them to get in front of people so that you can sell your program, so you could sell your products, whatever it might be, whatever the case is, right? Like it feels burdensome when you hear that word.
Oh yeah.
Like it feels like it feels like you're bringing me I'm bringing myself down just saying it, right? But like if I said I'm going to collect content today instead of I'm going to content batch, then it's like it gives me permission to, like you said, like collect different kinds of things throughout the day. Like it gives me permission to document how I run my business, or document what it takes for me to be a mom, or document for what I like. There are different facets of my life besides being an entrepreneur that you can capture, you can collect, and then present to people. So that's why I was like, as soon as you said it's the word, I was like, I 100% absolutely agree with that, because just this one word alone, like your energy completely shifted when you were like content collecting, like, oh, hell yeah, I could totally do that. Like there's no, it's more curious. It opens you up to more things. So.
And it's a different way of looking. I really like the different way of looking at it, because like everybody's a lifelong learner, right? Like, especially entrepreneurs, we are learning all the freaking time.
Oh yeah.
And we're collecting information all of the time. So when you say content collecting, I'm like, oh, I already do that because I'm learning literally all day. And then it really just becomes about the system that you use to content collect, right? So are you doing that digitally? Are you doing that with a planner? Are you doing that wherever? And like, what is your best way to put that information down that is not overwhelming to you? So like a paper planner is not overwhelming to me, but it has to be specific types of planners. And I go through like, what kind of plan, because I want to make my own, my own legit planner. I go through this like, well, how does this one work for me? How does that one work for me? So I bought this plum planner that has like all, I know this is a podcast, so you can't see, but like it has all these boxes, right? And I chose to do that because somebody else chose to do that and it works for their brain. And I look at this and I'm like, oh my God, like I can't do it. So I'm like, okay, I can't do a daily thing like that. It really has to be weekly, and it really has to have more white space, and it really has to have the very specific things that I need. There's a high performance planner out there that I love the questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't need to buy this. I'm just going to write my questions in my planner, right? So then I write my questions in the planner, and it literally like encompasses the whole planner, and it looks so overwhelming. Like I'm never gonna answer these questions ever because there's no room.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
like, it's really about what works for you and what feels good to you. So the word consistency and the word batching probably feel like Excel spreadsheets, kind of like this planner. It feels like an Excel spreadsheet. And I'm like, I can't do an Excel. Like this year I learned about myself, because I'm always learning about myself, that I hate Excel spreadsheets. Like it makes me feel like I'm in a box because there's so many boxes, but like I can't do it. Right? Like it makes me feel like I have to stay in the box. And I don't roll like that. I don't function like that. So when I had started ADHD content planning, right? I put it all in an Excel spreadsheet. Do you think I've looked at that?
No.
But there's a lot of good content in there. Right?
Oh, it is. Oh yeah.
So
no, I know what you mean.
But it's really about like figuring out what is going to feel good to you, but at the same time, like making sure that you are getting used to like getting yourself out there and getting yourself online, because like if you don't market yourself, how in the world are you ever going to get to your 10K months, your 20K months, your whatever else, $500 a month, for God's sake? Like, how are you ever going to get there if you're not getting in front of people?
Yeah. There was one thing that you said that I want to touch on really quick, because it's the thing that I was like, oh my God, you reminded me of this, but then I forgot it. You were talking about writing it out on a paper planner. And this is just like, because you reminded me,
You can absolutely do whatever you want. You could type it out, you can write it out. I'm never going to tell you what to do, but I will provide you with the science and the proof that writing things out is absolutely massive, because you have to engage more motor neurons when you are writing out letters, right? Like a D is not the same letter, and you don't go through the same motion or pattern that you would with an S. Okay. So it's really important to write things out, because that's how you're literally, like you were talking about earlier, how you're going to make yourself remember. That's how you're going to make yourself rethink a lot of things. And that's how you're going to like almost retrain yourself essentially, because you're writing, you're engaging more neurons. So you're firing and rewiring because of the motion. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about. But then the second thing that I wanted to talk about was, even as you said, the word consistency, right? Like words, again, really powerful. It shouldn't bring me down, because I know that it's a good thing. But if there's another word, and by all means, if anybody listening has another word for consistency, like put it in the comments, send us a DM, because that word itself was like, it was heavy. It's a heavy word to like be consistent. It's like this idea that you have to do something every day, and you don't want to feel like, like you're in a box, like you have to do something. Because I think I was talking about this earlier. You want for it to be your idea. You want for it to be something that you are naturally going to go do, that you don't feel pressured to go do.
Right.
And consistency, the word itself is pressuring, because you are being made to feel like you have to do this in order for you to see whatever it is that you are looking to obtain. So I just want to return back to that, because as you said the word consistency just there, I was like, ow, I actually never really paid attention to like how I felt when it was said. And now I can like feel it. Like it is something you have to be open to doing. And of course, yes, just like you said, marketing is important. Like the more you market, the more you get yourself out there, then the more likely that people are going to know you. They're going to know your face. They're going to know what you're about, right? But only if you feel open enough, curious enough, ready enough, because you don't have to badger yourself or pressure yourself. Like, what's the point of putting the stress on yourself if it's just gonna like push you into a place of burnout, right? Like, it's not worth it. So for me, I think that maybe it's time for me to be converted, to like the not batching side of things, and just open it up, show up when you feel ready, like show up when you have those intuitive downloads, like show up because you're collecting content, as opposed to, oh, well, I want this external thing like outside of me. Like make it more of an internal, like this feels aligned with me kind of journey.
Yeah.
So.
One thing I would suggest would be making like take the word consistency out of it altogether, just like you were saying, but say I need a posting habit, right? What is my posting habit? And then when you call it a habit, and it makes it feel like it's something that you want to do every day, because ideally when you're starting a habit, you want to do the habit, right? Like, or else you wouldn't call it a habit. Like an exercise habit, I really want to exercise more, right? It's something that I want to do. So if you start a posting habit and then stacking it with something that you enjoy doing. So like when is the best time you're going to post? It could be before something you enjoy, after something you enjoy. Well, let me ask you, when do you feel aligned to post?
Oh, It's funny. I've actually been asked that question twice in the last 2 days by two different people.
It's fine.
Yeah. So maybe the universe wants me to answer this question. I typically tend to post when it's like off the cuff, like I've just got this like really like great, like to me, it's like this brilliant light bulb idea. And I'm like, I have to share this. Like this one idea alone is gonna change somebody's life. So like that's usually when I post. That's usually also typically when a lot of my posts take off. So that's
Because
kind of
you
how I do it.
But what happens before you post and what happens after?
A lot of the time I have food before I post. Like I have like lunch and I'm in like a better mood. So I don't know if it's because I enjoy food. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy food, but like that's typically, it's usually around lunchtime or it's usually right before lunchtime that I'm creating content and I'm like posting.
So maybe that's when you need to post every day.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I'm like, well, even this, I just posted it was funny. I posted TikTok at 11:24, I want to say today. I don't know how it's doing right now. I'm gonna pull it up to see, but like it's usually like right before lunch or right after lunch, like when I post something and it usually takes off. Like the last time that I did that, I want to say, yeah, 9,752 views. The time before it was 16.9K. So like it's got a lot of potential based
So,
on habit stacking.
right. So, every time before you eat, a good thing to do is going to be to post your content because that's probably going to be the time you're most aligned to post.
Mhm.
And that's when you're going to get it done every day. Because if you don't do it right before lunch, what's the likelihood of you doing it later?
Right. It's a really good point. I appreciate that. And for those of you listening out there, definitely be sure to habit stack because I have heard of this before and how effective it is. Gloria, we're wrapping things up here. I just want to ask you one last thing before we close off this podcast. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? And what do you have going on right now?
So you can find me at Gloria_Starr_ on Instagram.com or Instagram.com, or you can find me at my ADHDmombrain.com. If you search my ADHD mom brain on Instagram, you'll also find me if you don't like the underscores. Right now I have the Find Your Magic group coaching program, and I'm going to be relaunching that soon. And I'm going to be pulling out and starting an external processing workshop every single week. I don't know what I'm calling it, but we're getting it going in the next few weeks. So keep an eye out on that.
I'm going to be there because I talk things out for me to be able to know what to do. So trust me, you're going to want to be there because if you know that you are somebody that has to talk things out in order for you to like get to where you have to go, this is literally going to be the call for you. So thank you, Gloria, so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
And don't forget to go check her out and her magic program too. All right. Thanks for tuning in.